Today on Missing Live, he told his friends he was just popping out.
That was in June 2006. Since then, there have been no sightings of Malcolm until...
This CCTV footage is from January this year, 18 months after he disappeared. But is it Malcolm, and do you know where he is? This is Missing Live. Every day this week, your help is needed to find just some of the 200,000 people reported missing every year.
And if you think you can help in any way with any of the cases shown on the programme, then please get in touch. The number's free phone 0500 700 700. And the charity Missing People are with us live all morning. Now, your calls are very important to us, and Terry Blythe from Missing People is once again with us this morning. Good morning.
Hi.
Terry, we've got some really, really good news, haven't we, about Abigail, who went missing?
Exactly. We've got a found case as a direct result of this programme, which is fantastic. It just shows that the appeals work, so we're really pleased. Yeah.
So that's the 14-year-old girl. Now, I think it's quite important at this stage to stress that we're not going to say too much about the circumstances of her being found, because we want to protect her sort of privacy a little bit here.
Exactly. I mean, in all cases of people going missing, the reasons for going missing, they vary enormously, but just because someone's found doesn't mean those reasons disappear. So it's very important for us at Missing People to remain confidential in that way, maintain the privacy for that person and respect that. But yes, it is just a great result.
It is a great result, and we can say, obviously, she's safe, she's well, and she's being looked after now, and she's the main thing.
Exactly.
She's being found. Well, thank you very much. We'll be talking to you later. We'll be bringing you updates as we get them throughout the programme, but if you've got any questions for the team, then please email us. The address is missing.live@bbc.co.uk.
And maybe your call could be the one to help reunite a family like Vanessa Parkinson and Peggy Howard. The mother and daughter who lived apart for over 50 years will be here later, along with the woman who brought them together.
But first, a home that has remained empty for almost 3 years, just waiting for its owner to return.
Patrick Kershaw's from Warrington in Cheshire.
Just driving from my house to my mum's house, me or my brother have to go at least once a week just to check, make sure there's no burst pipes, make sure there's no break-ins, check for the post, make sure the house is in order, really, so that if she does come home, she's got a home to go to.
His mum Liz went missing 3 years ago. Since then, her house has been empty.
So this is the living room. There's just, the clock stopped. No sign of life. We would have had every Christmas here, probably, bar none, I would have thought, for 20 years. It is heartbreaking.
Liz married John Kershaw in the 1960s, and they have 3 children.
My earliest memories is just sort of being around the house with her, going to the shops, doing the food shopping, that kind of thing. She was always there when I got home from school.
She was quite outgoing with a small circle of friends, but she was quite a shy person on the other hand.
I don't think she liked bringing attention to herself. She worried a lot, me starting school, Patrick starting school, when we all took our driving tests, when we all sat exams, just worrying for us.
They'd been happily married for over 30 years, but in 2000, John dies.
My dad he'd been out the night before to meet an old school friend. He'd driven back, and then about 3 in the morning, he'd had a heart attack.
Liz really relies on her children to help her.
She was very shaky, you'd pick up the phone and her voice would really shake, but then about 6 months, she was kind of back to normal.
But in 2003, she has an accident at home.
And this started some cyclical headaches which were happening every day, and it was a question of waiting for the next headache to arrive.
She got quite depressed with the pain, that was the main problem. I think she sort of panicked that it wasn't ever going to go away, realised that she was getting depressed and admitted herself into hospital. And then all of a sudden, it sort of, they got less and less frequent and it started to lift. And then come August, I think it was, 2003, she felt a lot better.
Oh, she was just so relieved. She said, I'm never going back in there, never. You know, and it was just wonderful. I had my friend back, yes.
It's Liz's 60th birthday and her children organise a party for her.
Everyone was in the restaurant and we took her in and, you know, everyone said surprise, happy birthday and stuff, and she really, really enjoyed it. She would have dreaded it if it had been planned, but loved it at the time.
It was a really good thing. Patrick did well organising that. And that was just sort of a few days after we'd been to my cousin's wedding in Ireland, so it was kind of a pretty good week, that.
Later, on Missing Live. On a holiday in Italy with her daughter, Liz gets ill again.
At one point in Rome, she couldn't eat her dinner and she said, oh, I feel really sick.
We'll be bringing you any updates if we have them later in the programme. But if you have any idea where Liz may be, please call Missing People. The number is 0500 700 700. It's free from landlines, but mobile charges may vary.
Now, your help's needed to find Wayne Davis. Wayne's been missing from Mountain Ash in Mid Glamorgan since the 27th of February this year. He's 5'11" and medium build. If you think you can help trace him, then please call Missing People on 0500 700 700. Remember, landline calls are free, but mobiles will vary.
Now, Terry, we've had some calls with regard to Stephen Hadley. That was a case we featured yesterday. Now, he went missing from Warsaw in 2006, was seen 6 months later in Cornwall. What calls have you had?
Well, we've had a great response, actually. We've had 19 possible sightings, and obviously we're passing those to the police. They're going to be looking into those, some of which, again, you know, Cornwall area has featured, as you've mentioned before, so it's very positive. We're really pleased. OK, well, let's speak to PC Colin Westgate. He's involved in that search for Stephen. Morning to you.
Hello, good morning.
You've got 19 calls. Do you think they're bringing you closer to him?
Yes, hopefully it will do. Yes, it's fantastic. We've had an excellent response from the public. Extremely grateful for all the information they've provided so far.
And now you've got those calls, how do you follow them up?
Yes, every sighting will be treated and fully investigated. Each one is a potential lead to find Stephen. It's quite often the case that one call from the public will transpire to further leads and sightings, linking into possible checks on CCTV, asking local officers to speak to other local residents, and hopefully other information will come forward from that.
So where are those sightings?
Yeah, the sightings have come from all across the country, but we're particularly interested in, as your colleague said, there's about 8 calls from the Devon and Cornwall area, and that's where initially we'll stem our inquiries to start with. With Stephen sort of possibly believed to be sleeping rough, with him moving about, that would possibly be the reasons why there's 8 calls from that area. So
it's important that other police forces are involved with your work as well, is it?
Oh, absolutely, yes. We couldn't do our job properly without their help and assistance.
OK, and what about, we've had 19 calls, is it still important that other people who perhaps have seen him call in?
Oh, absolutely. No matter how small the piece of information, that little small snippet could be the piece of the jigsaw that leads the police to finding Stephen and reuniting him with his mother Debbie and his family. So I would therefore urge anyone with any information for Stephen's whereabouts to come forward. Each call will be treated confidentially.
Yes, and you talk about his mum. Do you pass all this information to her? What happens with her?
Yes, I regularly talk to Debbie at least once a week. We have regular calls and updates from both sides with her investigative work that she carries out in the Devon and Cornwall area as well. She's done a sterling job. OK, well, best of luck with that. Thank you. And if you think you can help find Stephen, please call Missing People on 0500 700 700. We've just heard how important your calls are. Landline calls are free. Mobiles will vary.
He told his flatmates he was just popping out. He wasn't seen again. But 18 months later, someone thinks they've seen him and he's spotted on CCTV. But is it him?
This busy sorting office in Sussex is where Malcolm Leeves works. As a postman in Bexhill-on-Sea, he's always been well known around the town.
Malcolm was quite a quiet individual, but with a very dry sense of humour. I worked in the same aisle that Malcolm was working on, and he used to have all the aisle sort of rolling in stitches.
He worked on his post round in the town hall square, on a local round, and I also work in the town hall. So I used to drive to work and meet Malcolm in the town hall square and just stop and pass the time of day.
But things aren't going well in Malcolm's personal life.
This relationship that he was sort of in wasn't coming to anything. I think he spent a lot of time thinking about things and perhaps couldn't handle what was going on.
In June, he's off work suffering from depression. Malcolm is alone in his room most of the day. At 8:30 that evening, he tells his flatmate Lee that he's popping out. He doesn't come back. 5 days later, Lee makes contact with Malcolm's sister.
His friend Lee came to sort of express his concerns, really, as to, the fact that he hadn't seen Malcolm. We sort of went over it and we decided there and then to call the police.
Bexhill police can find no trace of Malcolm. For weeks, his mobile phone and bank accounts remain unused.
I was very worried. I think because it was something totally out of character for Malcolm to do.
The discovery that his passport is missing makes Shirley wonder if he's left the country.
He liked to go to Tenerife and was really, really wanting to buy somewhere out there. He got in touch with a local property agent. She showed him around lots of properties and things, and he was really, really keen to live out there.
Police aren't able to establish if Malcolm has flown to Spain, but Shirley is determined to find out if he's in the Canary Islands.
My husband and I went out to Tenerife. We travelled and met people that he'd been in touch with.
They speak to dozens of people on the island, but no one has seen Malcolm. It's 3 months before there's any news. Suddenly, in January this year, 18 months after his disappearance, there's a possible sighting much closer to home. A woman who knows Malcolm from his post round thinks she's seen him a few miles from Bexhill.
This footage that we have here from Hastings train station is dated 26th of January this year, and it was around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It does bear a striking resemblance to Mr. Leeves as he waves to a car that appears to be driving off. Goes over here to the cashier point to purchase the ticket for Brighton. The footage continues then, showing the male exiting the station back to the front and then boards the bus.
Is the man in the recording Malcolm? And who dropped him off at the station? There's a poster campaign in Brighton's bars, clubs and cafes, but there's no new information. Malcolm's now been missing for almost 2 years.
I've met up with a lot of Malcolm's old customers, and quite regularly they're asking after him, have we heard any news of Malcolm yet? Has he returned back to us yet? And so his name and his face is still remembered.
It'd be lovely if he could just walk through the door. Yeah, one day he will. And I think we'll just always keep that in mind, that one day he will come home. And that day can't come soon enough, really.
Well, if you can help in the search for Malcolm, then please call Missing People. And the number is on your screen now.
Another case that needs your help. 22-year-old Panaj Deer is a member of the Indian national taekwondo team. He was last seen at the Manchester Arena on the 29th of September 2007. Although he was due to return to India on the 10th of October, he didn't. If you have any idea of where he is, please call Greater Manchester Police on 0161 856 2234 and local rates apply.
Terry from Missing People is still with us. What's been coming in, Terry?
Oh, we've had quite a lot of calls on Michael Hunter. So he's the man missing from County Durham.
Yes, he's the guy, if I remember rightly, the Keen Walker who's
That's
just
right.
gone out. I think we've had the search and rescue team out looking for him as well.
Exactly. We've had around about 20 calls of possible sightings for him. So again, that's really positive, and we're going to be looking into those.
So 20 possible sightings just since we've done the appeal on the programme.
Exactly, exactly. And I believe they're still coming in. So obviously that's really positive.
That's brilliant. Yeah, keep us updated on that. And then anything else? Understanding you might have had some stuff in on K Hawk.
K Hawk, exactly. We've had, as soon as the appeal went out, we had a few calls, and then we've also had a few additional calls. In total, I think we've got about 7 or 8 that we're really looking into.
So just to recap, Kay, I think we've just seen a picture of her there. She was the grandmother from Cornwall who's just driven off. Her car's still missing. Family deeply worried about her, aren't they? So I guess everyone will be really, really keen for the calls to come in on her.
Exactly. Anyone with any information, obviously, we will look into it, and hopefully that might lead to a good result.
Brilliant. Well, listen, Terry, we're going to be talking to you later on in the programme. I know the updates are already coming through, actually, aren't they? So please keep us updated, and we'll talk to you later on. Thank you. Louise.
Jill Whitley knows what it's like to reunite families. She has over 3,000 cases of people who've lost contact wanting her help. Morning to you, Jill.
Morning, Louise.
And this started because your husband, wanted to get in contact with his family. What happened?
He hadn't seen her for 34 years, and then in 1995 he decided he wanted to find her.
His mum?
His mum. So I actually found her in Bradford because he remembered Bradford in connection with her through the years. So I got the Telegraph and Argus to run a story, and she responded that same evening.
How amazing. How much difference did it make for him being reunited
Oh,
with
an
her?
immense difference. But sadly, she passed away 11 months after we found her. But at least she passed away in her own in our home with her own family around her, the family she thought didn't want to know her.
Why did she think that, and how much difference did it make to her as well that you went out and found her?
Oh, she was overwhelmed. She was one lovely lady. What made a huge difference to John, because he found out a lot of truths which, you know, he'd been told they were lies, and he found out the truth from his mum.
So now you are helping other people as well, aren't you, who've lost contact? How do you even start, really?
Well, when I first started, it's in memory of his mum. And when I first started, I was just working blind. I didn't know what on earth I was doing. And then gradually over the years, I've taught myself different methods, different ways, taught myself how to search the records. And it's just spiralled.
And you've now you put people in touch with each other.
Yes, I've been doing that for the past 12 years.
And how tricky is it? Are there some people who perhaps don't want to be put in touch, or how do you work
There
it?
are some. I'll contact the person concerned when I find them. And if they do not want to have contact with the person who's seeking them, then that is it, end of story. But I find the majority of people, friends, siblings, birth mums, any scenario, most of them are really happy to be found.
You mentioned birth mums. Is that a tricky one as well, if they want to then go and find a child that they've had to give up?
Birth mums themselves would find it a lot more difficult, because all of the rights are on the child's side. Anybody who's been adopted now has the right to find their roots. But birth mums, on the other hand, when they sign their child away, they're never expected to see them ever again. So they cannot get access to records, whereas the children can.
OK, if people are watching you this morning and they want to get in touch with people, family they've lost contact with, how do they even begin then? They contact you, presumably, but what other things can they do?
They could either contact me, or if they wanted to do themselves, they have to get the basic facts first. Get as much information as they possibly can. In the case of a birth mum, then I suggest they get access to their own birth records, or at least a copy of their original birth certificates. But in friends or anything like that, or siblings, get facts, full name, date of birth, because they're going to need that information to enable them to look through the records.
And do you see, over the years that you've been doing this, have you seen it really makes people a difference to their lives, being in contact?
It can turn lives around completely from one thing right to another.
Oh, Jill, thank you very much for coming to talk to us here. And one of Jill's cases, actually, mother and daughter Peggy and Vanessa will be here a bit later. And if you have any reunited stories, please get in touch with us as well, missing.live@bbc.co.uk.
As we saw earlier, Liz Kershaw is still missing. Now, your help's needed to find her because since she's disappeared, Liz has become a grandmother and doesn't even know it yet.
64-year-old Liz Kershaw is from Cheshire. She has 3 children. She lost her husband 8 years ago. After an accident at home, she starts getting headaches. She feels better in early 2005 and goes to Italy with her daughter.
We went on holiday to Rome, which we'd booked, and it was a lovely time. And at one point in Rome, she couldn't eat her dinner, and she said, "Oh, I feel really sick," and she looked really low, and I said, "Have the headaches come back?" And she told me they'd come back, and that really crushed her.
Knocked her for 6, it's like, what's happened, what have I done? And so I think her reaction to it was worse, and really did, she was desperate to get back in hospital because she thought that would solve things.
In May 2005, Liz is admitted to a psychiatric unit in Warrington.
She was really worked up, and I think more so than the first time because it had come back totally unexpected and she couldn't see an end to it.
Liz has been in there for 3 months. By August, she wants to leave, but the doctors don't think she's ready.
She'd been in there quite a few months and it was coming up to this bank holiday, and she did not want to be there. She wanted to come home.
On the 26th of August 2005, Liz walks out of the hospital.
The phone rang and they said it was Hollands Park Hospital. Had I seen Sarah, as they called her, because that was her first name, was she with me? And I said, no, what's happened? And they said, well, she hasn't been seen in the hospital since 1 o'clock.
She was due to go to occupational therapy. It was only across a corridor, but she chose that moment to go.
Realising Liz isn't there, they tried to contact her.
The hospital phoned my mum's home phone number. It was answered and somebody said, oh, there's nobody of that name living here.
That's what she used to say if nuisance callers rang. If someone wanted to interview her about, you know, getting a new gas supply, she'd just say, no one of that name lives here. My auntie, as soon as she found out, rang the house and someone picked up.
It was complete silence on the other end, and I just kept saying, Liz, answer me, Liz, and then she put the phone down. So I rang back again, but she wouldn't answer.
Liz's family immediately report her missing.
Police got involved with Mrs Kershaw when she was reported missing from Hollands Park Hospital. But taking into account her mental state, she was graded at that time as being a high risk.
A team of officers go to the hospital to search the grounds, but there's no sign of Liz. Then it's discovered that her mobile phone is not in her room on the ward. If she's taken it with her, it's possible they can trace her through her calls.
Now, what we do is we contact her phone company, and from that we can then pinpoint where that person potentially could be. So what we did, we liaised with the company, which identified then that Mrs Kershaw was possibly in the Wharf Street area of Warrington.
Wharf Street is less than 4 miles from the Hollands Park Hospital. Officers rush there, but again, they can't find Liz.
This area is where Mrs Kershaw's phone was pinged. As you can see, it runs parallel with the Mersey. The area is quite a huge area to search, and obviously we used all the available resources we had at the time, which included underwater search teams, the airplane, and also police dogs.
For 10 hours, dozens of specialist officers searched the river, its banks and industrial buildings nearby. But by the end of the day, nothing is found.
On a Saturday morning, I woke up and no news. And that's when I started thinking, well, he's been out now 24 hours. Something's not right.
Later that day, a publicity campaign is launched. Reports come in of a number of sightings.
We had a lead from Liverpool, from somebody who said that they possibly saw Mrs Kershaw in the Liverpool area. We had a possible sighting of Mrs Kershaw in the YMCA in Manchester, and they took place in August. In September, we had a report from a neighbour who stated that she'd seen Mrs Kershaw in the area where she lived. Now, if that was Mrs Kershaw, then it means that she'd have been at least safe and well, and maybe that she was going home.
None of the sightings have been confirmed. The past 3 years has been an agonising wait. Her children are keeping her home ready for her to return.
I just miss talking to her every day, you know, ringing her up, sending a text message, that kind of thing. Anything that happens at work or in life, I want to ring her up and tell her, and I can't.
It's just the three of us now. I mean, a couple of Christmases ago, it's just from having, you know, at least a bit of a family, there was suddenly just the three of us.
It's what she is missing. Our new families are, you know, Catherine's going to get married, I'm going to have a child. It's the, you know, so frustrating that she can't be there to share that with us. We do miss her and we want her back.
And if you have any idea where Liz may be, please call Missing People. We are getting calls already this morning, so more would be great. Patrick, her son, has now had a baby boy. He will be with us here in the studio next week.
Missing People are asking for your help to find Tanisha Harvey. She's been missing from Brockley in South London since the 23rd of March this year. 15-year-old Tanisha's 5'6", has a pierced lip, and when last seen, she was wearing a blue T-shirt and black jogging bottoms. So if you can help in the search for Tanisha, then please give us a call. And the number is on your screen now.
With me right now are Peggy and Vanessa, who were reunited by Jill Whitley after 50 years of being apart. Good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us. Peggy, I think we'd better go back to the beginning, hadn't we? Yes. Why did you have to give up your little girl?
Well, my family wouldn't accept it, and so my brother in Cornwall and his wife offered me to go down there. I was 4 months. I'd never told anyone until I was 4 months, and so I went to Cornwall, had Jane, well, Vanessa.
Yeah, you call her Jane because that's the name you gave her.
Yeah.
You were then adopted, weren't you?
I was.
And many years later, wanted to get in touch with your mum. Tell us what happened.
That's right. Well, as an adopted person, I think you are quite, you know, interested to know why. But I had a wonderful upbringing. But I was just on holiday in Plymouth with my partner, Michael, and walking on the Hoe, it's getting me emotional, I just started to cry, and he asked why, and I said, I just feel as though I've come home. And so a few weeks later, then, after looking at the papers, which I'd never done before, I had actually been born there, and it was only a matter of 100 yards away.
How amazing. And all those years, you kept a photograph, didn't you?
Oh, yes, yes.
What did you have, and did you think about her a lot as well?
Oh, of course. I mean, you wonder what had happened, you know, and what sort of parents she had and that. But I did have one message to say. They sent it through the adoption people. That they were the happiest people and envied, the envy of the road, they say.
No, Jill managed to get you two in touch.
That's right. I actually applied for my birth certificate, and Michael and I did tracing as far as we found Mum's marriage certificate. And then at that point, it was actually my stepmum, Joan, who had seen the article in the Daily Mail, and she said, maybe Jill would be the one to get in touch with, and I did. And within 2 months, I'd had a phone call from Jill on a Friday evening, I remember, and she said, well, I've got a number for you, and she said, and your mum's waiting for a phone call. And I burst into tears, and I thought, gosh, what am I going to say?
And from that phone call, you then met, didn't you,
Yes.
on a train station? Did you? And you recognised each other, did you?
Well, she came to Woking, where I live, and we're about 200 yards away, which is quite a long way. And she came to, and I recognised her. I knew she was my daughter.
And what's that moment like?
And it was marvellous, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, it was a wonderful reunion, and we took it from there, didn't we?
We did.
And because my other daughter, Debbie, she was there as well, so not at the meeting, but we went out in the evening and had dinner, and that was lovely.
To me, you look very similar. Are there other similarities that you notice as well?
Oh, yes, we've got the same nature, and we laugh at the same
We
things.
giggle at the
and we
same
giggle.
things, and
Yeah.
yes, it was been wonderful.
Yeah, and I think the
Absolutely
bond's
wonderful.
just grown stronger, and we just have amazing times, don't we?
We do. We can't. You know, I go and stay with Jane in Blackpool, and then she comes down to me. And
Well, thank you so much for coming to tell us about your story. It's really
Thank
lovely
you.
to hear from
I
you.
just hope that anybody else, perhaps tracing, would have such a happy ending.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And we also want to hear about, if you have any similar stories as well, please email them to us at missing.live@bbc.co.uk.
What a lovely story. Right, last week we brought you the mysterious case of the man who's missing his memory. We still need your help to find out who he is and put him in touch with his past.
May 2000, Oldham town centre in Lancashire. A man suffering from hypothermia and falls unconscious. He's seriously ill and is rushed to hospital. When the man wakes up, he doesn't know where he's from or if he has any family. He has no identification on him. He doesn't even know his own name. In fact, the man hasn't a single memory from his entire life. Now, 8 years later, and he still has no idea who he is. The people caring for him want to find the identity of their mystery man.
I truly believe, you know, he's somebody's father, somebody's grandfather, somebody's uncle.
Because he has no ID, he can't register for a pension or even apply for a bus pass. Put simply, in the eyes of the law, this man doesn't exist. Experts have established that the man has suffered a type of brain damage known as ABI.
ABI stands for acquired brain injury, and it's damage to the brain that is sustained in one's lifetime, usually in adulthood or latest kind of adolescence, as opposed to perhaps a condition that you're born with.
ABI can be brought on by anything that damages the brain, but no one knows what happened 8 years ago to cause this man's total memory loss. His carers encourage him to speak, hoping that he'll reveal details from his past.
Was he good? Was he good? Was he a good boxer?
Yeah.
And were you a boxer? Did you box? I think you did.
He'll say the word boxing. What stemmed from that over a period of time, that he's used the word army. Is that in relation to, has he been in the army, or is he just connecting that with recent TV programmes that he's currently watching?
8 weeks until someone recognises him, or if he can remember something from his own past, his carers have given him a temporary identity.
He has been given a name, he's been given a date of birth. He's been known as David for nearly 8 years now.
They estimate he's around 70,
but they'd much prefer to find out the real facts about his life.
If we could actually find and discover David's true identity, that could only enhance his quality of life and to actually enable him to find out who he is.
Well, since that film went out, we've had a number of calls. And Terry, what can you tell us? What's the latest on that case?
Well, it's great. We've had a really overwhelming response with that. A lot of calls regarding David Harrison. A lot of people thinking he might be a relative or that they recognise him. So obviously the police and social services are working together to follow those up, focusing on a few of those in particular.
I understand they're going quite far away as well, some of these inquiries. As far away as Canada, is that
We've
right?
had all sorts. So obviously it's going to take a lot of time to look into them, but they're all useful. We're looking at a few different names. So yeah,
Brilliant. OK, well, fingers crossed. We really do need to find out who he is, don't we? Now, David's story is unusual, but most of the unidentified cases missing people deal with are more often than not no longer alive. Terry, who's a forensic artist at Missing People, and anthropologist Dr. Tim Thompson are here with us now. And together they build a picture of how someone would look. Now, this is fascinating, Tim, isn't it? If a body's found and no one knows who it is, what is it that you can do?
Well, the anthropologist can start by creating a profile, a biological profile of that person. Basically looking at the skeleton, looking at the bones and trying to work out who they were, their sex, their age, their height, whether they had any major illnesses or traumas and those sorts of things.
So just from bones you can find out that much information?
Absolutely. We think of the skeleton as being very hard and solid, but actually it's very changeable and it changes depending on your sex, how you grow, everything that you do, even what you eat and drink. And all we try and do is look at that and interpret those to figure out a little bit about that person.
So there's obviously hundreds of bones in the body. Which are the best for you to do your work from?
Well, we can use pretty much all of them, but really the head is the best and the pelvis. The pelvis is best for ageing and best for working out sex as well.
That's fantastic. So if you've got some information that you've gathered from the bones, what's the next step then for you to identify who this person could have been?
Well, once we've created our profile, we simply give that information on to someone else and they can take it further. And one of the people that we could pass that information on to would be a forensic artist.
Such as Terry. So Terry, then what happens then?
Well, basically, once we've got a good description of an unidentified person, we can use that in publicity, which we try and do, obviously, but also we can do some forensic art, and in some circumstances we can do facial reconstruction, like this one, for example. This is still a man who's still unidentified, unfortunately, but what we do is take the skull and use the skull as the foundation of the face and basically build up the face from the skull using the muscle groups and so on to create an image of what that person might look like.
It's absolutely fantastic. So it's worth stressing, this is an actual real case that you're working on at the moment, isn't it? This model that you've got here.
This man was found in Northamptonshire in 2002. More information is known about him. We do have a little bit of information about his hair because of the way he was found. We also know a tiny detail, for example, he had 2 ear piercings in one ear. So things like that. He was also found with a sleeping bag.
Was there a rucksack or something?
Yeah, his possessions nearby seemed to link to him. He may have been living rough, but the rucksack, again, might be recognisable as well as his face, hopefully.
So, I mean, I guess it's worth saying that this is a real model that you've made up now, and if there is anyone that actually recognises who that is, effectively, that's what we're doing, isn't it? We want to find out who this person could have been, and this is a way of doing it.
Exactly.
So we'll urge those people to contact us today.
Yeah, please do. I mean, if anyone recognises this person, or if those circumstances and timings sound familiar, we'd like to know about it. And the same with all of our unidentified cases, in fact.
So you obviously get a fair number of these. What sort of success rate do you have?
It's actually pretty high. At the moment, we have around about 100 outstanding unidentified cases, but we get around 70 reported to us each year, but around 75% of those are identified. But if those aren't, then we continue to do publicity, keep getting information, and hopefully continue to identify them.
Well, you know, it's absolutely fascinating work, the pair of you. I won't ask why you got into the bones so much. I joined the police to lock up bad people, but I won't ask why you got into that. But it's absolutely fantastic. Thank you. Thank you both for joining us.
Yes, and your help is needed to find this unidentified person. On the 20th of September 2004, the body of a woman was found in Horton in Ribblesdale in North Yorkshire. She was partly clothed and may have been there for several weeks. She's aged between 20 and 40. She's thought to be from South East Asia, although it's not known if she was a foreign national or a UK resident. She was dressed in green Marks & Spencer jeans, white underwear and possibly a white T-shirt that was found nearby. Now, she had a 22-carat plain gold band on her left ring finger. If you can help in identifying her, please call Missing People. The number is on your screen now.
Now, Terry, you're back at your desk again there. Have you got any more updates for us?
Yes, we do. We've had a few calls on Elaine Taggart.
Now, remember that she's the one that dropped her friend off in Brighton, wasn't she? And then we just haven't seen her since.
Exactly.
What have you got on her?
So, well, any information would be great, of course. We've had a few calls. We obviously want more and as much as possible. We'll work with the police on those.
Okay.
We've also had a lot of calls on Jim Dowsett.
Now, he's the guy who walked off. He's got the Alzheimer's disease, isn't he? Is that right?
Exactly. It's been very encouraging because we've actually had quite a lot of calls. We've had nearly 20 calls on him. So,
That's quite good, actually, because
yeah.
it's only a really recent appeal for him, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's really good. Well, obviously, we'll be talking to you later on throughout the series. You'll be joining us again, won't you? And as you get the updates, please let us know as we go along. Thank you, Louise.
Just before we go, a quick reminder of some of the people that need your help to find them. 64-year-old Liz Kershaw hasn't been seen since she walked out of a hospital on the 26th of August 2005. Since she disappeared, she has become a grandmother. We are getting calls, but more calls would be great as well.
Malcolm Leeves left his flat on the 22nd of June 2006, saying he was just popping out. There was a potential sighting 18 months later. After he disappeared in January this year, CCTV picked up someone that looked very much like him.
And there have been no calls about Alfred Tidy. He's a 64-year-old man. He went missing from Stockton-on-Tees since the 18th of April. He's got no money with him or the medication that he needs.
And still no calls, I'm afraid, on the case of Lee Egan. He went missing from Telford in Shropshire on the 23rd of March this year.
Yes, if you can help in any way, please do call Missing People. And actually, we've had lots of lovely emails in from you this morning about that Reunited story about Peggy and Vanessa. This is from Keith. He was adopted in 1946, 4 years ago. He discovered that his birth mother was alive and living in Australia. He's now met up with his mum and his brother and sister and is looking for more siblings.
We've also had people asking if the missing website is 24 hours and if the confidential hotline is 24 hours. Of course it is. So if you do have any information, just because we're not on air doesn't mean you can't get it to us, because they are 24/7. So if you can help with any of our cases, make sure that you do get in touch with us.
Yes, actually, and lots of you asking for help on Reunited stories as well. Trish has sent us an email saying she was adopted in 1943 at 3 days old. She desperately wants some help as she feels she doesn't have much time. We can email her back as well. And Eunice was adopted as a 10-week-old baby during the war. 64 years later...
Unbelievable.
It is. She was able to find 3 siblings. They all welcomed her and her family with open arms. So our address is missing.live@bbc.co.uk. Please get in touch if you want to.
Well, that's all for today. So many thanks for all your calls. On tomorrow's programme, we'll have updates on all our appeals, plus Shahira Oza, the 51-year-old who disappeared from her house in Manchester last year. Her daughter's now been searching for her for 6 months and desperately needs your help.
And James Nutley, it was supposed to be a golfing holiday shared by a group of good friends, but the trip ended badly when James went missing after a night out. So thank you very much for watching. We'll see you at the same time tomorrow. It's goodbye.
Goodbye.